their budgets would also have been cut extensively, because in 2020 and 21 their CFO tasted blood and has seen that, okay, we don't need to spend that much on travels. The biggest hurdle for me was accepting that, okay, I'm wasting my time here. I don't have much years left in me. If I really want to create, this is the time. Managing Excel sheets and balance sheets, completely crazy, man. That, Pudong was pretty much a farmland. China is irreplaceable, and we sold in 2016 July to Blackstone.
Minesh, my first question is, where are you coming from originally, and what's your China-Asia story?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for taking me out on this beautiful, beautiful blue sky day in China, man. So I am originally from India. I was born in India. I had a very good opportunity to work and live in so many countries and cities and travel to more than 50 countries for work. So it's been an interesting ride. I started coming to China very early on, in the early 2000s. I was working for a Taiwanese textile trading company. So, like we were discussing earlier, I was going to factories out of nowhere, Wuxi and Suzhou and Ningbo, and I remember going from Shanghai by the ferry across the Yellow River, going to Ningbo, spending 8-9 hours just traveling on the car and stuff. So yeah, those are the days I started coming here. And it was fun. It was a great learning experience being on the manufacturing side. I actually started my career in India, in Mumbai, in Yellow Pages. So selling listings.
Right.
So the original listings model, where you look in the Yellow Pages, the advertisements in the Yellow Pages, and you sell them for like $40-50 a piece, something of that sort of those days. But anyways, that's where I started my career in, and then I went into manufacturing, had my education in the US at Thunderbird. That's why the international business. This is Thunderbird. I have the shirt on. Actually, your guest last week, Rich, was there from Thunderbird as well. But yeah, so all that international business education was put to use during my first few assignments, and Taiwan was a big jump from China when I decided to come to Taiwan without learning any Chinese and not knowing much about China that time. The only thing I knew was that China was growing and there was a big opportunity, and they needed international business, especially selling Chinese products to outside. And that's how I started here.
Interesting. So you work and live in many countries, as I mentioned, in cities. Can you just now look back and compare what are the working environment, what are the differences, what are the similarities between these different countries, different cities?
Yeah, so it's not just different cities, but I lived there and traveled to many other cities at different lifestyles of those cities and countries, right? So for example, I lived in New York, and New York was going through a different phase of change post 2008 when I was living there. I was traveling to all of Latin America with that job, and Colombia was just starting to get into WTO at that point of time, so there was a different experience. Brazil was just starting to normalize itself, so I had that experience as well. While when I was in Asia, in Hong Kong, these were the days early mid to late 2000s, when Indonesia was getting kind of into the manufacturing phase. India was getting into the manufacturing phase. Thailand, Vietnam. I had the opportunity to open markets like Vietnam and set up the first office of Global Sources in 2006 in Vietnam. Very interesting times. 2006 to now, when you look at Ho Chi Minh City, for example, when I went and looked at offices to now, it's a complete night and day difference. So there are certain similarities in all these cities depending on what lifestyle they are in. Like when I used to come to Shanghai in the early days, Pudong was pretty much a farmland. The only thing you could see was the Jinmao Tower, I mean the Pearl Tower and the Jinmao Tower, and that's it. And everything else was blank.
Which year was it?
This is 2002, 3.
Wow.
Right, so very different markets, but yeah, I think it is interesting to go to all these places. Like I said, when you go to Colombia and you see the similarities between Colombia growing and Indonesia growing, and what is happening in Mexico City, and comparing it with Indonesia or comparing with India, you just see that, oh, there are so many similarities at worlds apart. Like I had opportunity to, when I was living in London, I had opportunity to travel to Poznan in Poland, right, for manufacturing. We were manufacturing stuff there, and you can see the difference and the similarities between Poznan and Shenzhen, for example, right? Shenzhen in the early days. But if I had not got that opportunity, I would never be able to compare these things. So that's the interesting part. And I learn everywhere, like, okay, what are similarities, what are differences? And being a student of international business, one of the things we learned is cross-cultural differences, cross-cultural communications, cross-cultural negotiations. And people are different in all these places, but the core, because I see it from a manufacturing perspective, or I have always worked in that space where it was promoting manufacturers. So I see the similarities in all these markets as they grow in different phases of life. Okay, what is coming next? For example, Vietnam, we saw the opportunity. I kind of rallied for opening Vietnam office in 2006, saying that Vietnam would be like the state of Guangzhou, I mean state of Guangdong, and that's the opportunity that is there for us to open and build that offices. And it's come out true now that 15 years down, you can see the, I mean, I don't know when you last went to Ho Chi Minh City, but Ho Chi Minh City is completely crazy, man. That city is growing out of bounds. And the manufacturing has improved so much. I mean, they were contract manufacturers at the best at those point of time. Now they have really good manufacturing facilities and plants and stuff. So it's really good.
Global sources, it's a big chapter of your life, I guess. You spent quite a few years working for the company. Can you just walk me through what did you do at the company, what did you learn, and why did you leave the company?
Okay, so global sources, I did 2 chapters there. So I did 2006 to 11. That was my first time at Global Sources, and that time they were just getting into the trade show business. It was a NASDAQ listed company. They were in the magazine business, online platform. Actually, the Global Sources online platform was what Alibaba built its platform on. The first platform of Alibaba was a complete replica of the Global Sources online platform. Then they had trade shows. Trade shows are where they help buyers meet suppliers and visit suppliers in the trade shows. So they had started that. And I came in to bring in non-China suppliers to a trade show called China Sourcing Fair. So it was a big task from day one, because I was selling a product that had China all written over it, and I had to sell it to the Indians and the Indonesians and the Thais and the Vietnamese, and convincing them that, hey, you need to have a Thai pavilion at China Sourcing Fair. But yeah, that was the fun time. So that's what I started in 2006. By 2011, I was managing parts of the trade show. Of course, we had expanded trade shows. I had helped them launch in Mumbai. We had done a trade show in Mumbai. We had done a trade show in Miami, in Brazil, in Singapore. And I had the chances of going, or Dubai, and I had the chances of going and doing the negotiations and working on planning and launching of those trade shows. So that's what I did. And I left to New York to start a sourcing platform and manage North America, Latin America business for Intertech, which is a testing inspection company, which is even bigger. So Global Sources at that time was 4,000 people. I went to New York to manage this company, who was a 60,000 people company listed in FTSE, and I was the senior director for North America, Latin America for the compliance operations. That was a good experience. Then I worked in London at Pico, which is one of the largest trade show organizers or trade show setup companies. And I was the chief executive for Europe, lived in London, traveled to Poland and France and Germany and Switzerland and everywhere else. And then Global Sources wanted me back in 2016. So I came back, and we sold. My co-founder Brent was the COO that time, and he was working on selling the company to Blackstone. So we had some interesting times. I was in the senior management, so got to see what was happening. We were pitching to Bain and Blackstone at that time, and we sold in 2016 July to Blackstone. This can be a little controversial because this is my view, but we expected Blackstone to bring in resources and technology and money, etc., once they bought us. But we soon realized that all we were doing was managing Excel sheets and balance sheets, and I was cutting my team to from uh, like I was managing a big team, and I was cutting basically 70% of the staff without really having reasons to do it. So it was frustrating. So
How
that's
did you manage that? I mean, it sounds horrible.
you know, when you're not creating something, I never realized before that when you're not creating, you feel like you are wasting time, like extensively wasting time. And I had never had that low feeling in 20 years of my career till all that happened. Because even though I was getting a nice cushy package and an expat salary, those things, it was just not satisfying. It was so bad that I decided that no matter what, we got to build our own, and we need to really find solutions for the market rather than just manage, selling Excel sheets and balance sheets, and you're beautifying the balance sheet for somebody who doesn't really pay attention to what the business can build. So that was really frustrating, and that was the main reason. And I felt that the management that they brought in, the new management they brought in, also were with the objective of only cutting costs rather than building solutions. And the opportunity was huge for building solutions, especially in the sourcing arena, and this was pre-COVID. And we basically left to build BuyHive, which we would have built inside if Blackstone was really putting in resources. So that's why we said, okay, now time to leave.
And I think when we first met, it was somewhere at the event. I'm not sure, Shenzhen, maybe Guangzhou, maybe Hainan. I don't remember. But you were representing the Launchpad,
Yeah.
startup Launchpad. So can you just tell me a little bit more about what is it and why you spend time with Launchpad?
Yeah, so as I said, Global Sources had multiple products, trade shows, magazines online, and one of the trade shows that we had then was Startup Launchpad. And I was, apart from managing all of the international sales operations in my second time at Global Sources, apart from managing all of the international operations for them, I was also given the responsibility of Startup Launchpad. I was the product head for Startup Launchpad, which is basically a trade show for helping IoT and hardware startups, which are basically in the GBA area, a lot of them, right? And those, if you remember, 2016 to 19, you saw tons and tons of new hardware IoT startups building and launching and expanding. And the opportunity we had was to help them expand because of Global Sources having all these retailers, buyer relationships all over the world. We actually were able to bring in 40,000, 50,000 buyers from all around the world to the startups, along with our electronics trade show. So they had an electronic trade show in Hong Kong, and we said we launch it together with it and we organize it together with it. So I took over the show. We used to get about 250, 300 startups to that. They would exhibit, they'll meet 45, 50,000 buyers from around the world, and we would also have a conference program to give them tools basically around how to build or how to scale up, and kind of community building as you do, but it's just during those so 2 times a year, 4 days each time.
And it still exists.
No, I think they shelved that program after I left. It's not just a typical trade show. It's a lot of community building, and if you know, I mean, you obviously are the master community developer, and it takes a lot of effort doing community building, and it's not. I mean, it doesn't give you returns as an investor like Blackstone would want. So I think that's why they shelved it.
You transition from big corporate to a startup, which you're running at the moment. We're going to talk a little bit later about it. So, how was exactly the transition? Did you doubt that, okay, because you're not going to have a big cushion, right? You're not going to have big packages, and you have already the family, so it's kind of risky, and lots of people basically sometimes not taking that step. Tell me more about your transition.
Yeah, I mean, I did not do this in a young age, right? 40s, you've been spoiled by expat packages and you have a cushy job for many years. So that is the hurdle that anybody who was in our age and who's had that much experience would feel, right? And it was the biggest hurdle for me was accepting that, okay, I'm wasting my time here. I don't have much years left in me. If I really want to create, this is the time. And once I realized that, right, that okay, I really want to solve a problem in the sourcing industry. I really want to build something. I don't want to manage balance sheets and be frustrated at the end of the day every day. I was starting to put on weight. I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling like I'm going to go into depression. I didn't go into depression, but I felt like I'm going to go into depression because I'm not really building anything. So to avoid that, I was like, the best thing is let's go, let's work. My family was supportive, and we, touch wood, monetarily, we said, okay, if I don't make any money for 1 year, I can survive, right? So I said I'll give myself 1 year. Me and Brent, we discussed because he was leaving also a full time. He was the CEO of the company, so Nasdaq listed CEO, so he's getting well paid also. I was the head of international. I was well paid also. We said, okay, can we survive for a year without any salaries? We can. Can we give ourselves 6 months to build the product and 6 months to launch it and test it out? If it starts making money, it doesn't need to break even or anything. So if it starts making money, then we commit to this. Then we whatever we need to do financially, we manage. But are we able to comfortably do the first year without that? That's what we did.
That's amazing. Well, you put a lot of thoughts behind it, right? So it wasn't just spontaneous decision for sure.
No.
And you started right when the COVID happened, and that's actually, I don't know, was it opportunity or challenge for you?
Yeah. So so we started planning this Chinese New Year 2019, right? And Brent quit in August, and I quit in October, and the company asked me to stay around till the end of December, right? So then actually we could start on 1st of January without knowing that we we're going to be hit by COVID in the face as soon as we start, right? And the solution we were building at that time was around helping buyers who are not able to travel at trade shows. We're saying, okay, we knew trade shows very well. We were seeing, okay, sourcing is happening at trade shows, but many buyers, new set of buyers are coming in the market, and we need to find solutions for them. And that's what the main idea was, and it still is partly. We got hit in the face with COVID, but at the same time, we also saw the opportunity, because what we were going to build was a network of freelance sourcing professionals who would go to a trade show on behalf of buyers. So let's say Marianne is an expert in auto components, and you've been in China 15 years, and you know the industry, you speak the local language, you speak the business terms, etc., and you have the technical knowledge. If a buyer from France is not able to travel to China for a trade show or to do sourcing, he can ask Marianne, hey Marianne, can you go on my behalf, or can you find me good suppliers for my price point, for my quality, for my standards? And for Marianne, it will be very easy. He won't have to spend time going through Alibabas and global sources and stuff, and the buyer won't have to send hundreds of emails to all those suppliers that they found on online platforms. And that's what we try to avoid. And then when Marianne tells that, hey, Minesh, these are the good suppliers, Marianne is saying, because Marianne has worked with them, Marianne has done past trade with them, and the credibility that brings to sourcing is incredible, right? Because like you going to a restaurant and having eaten and then telling that, okay, this is good food or not, it is far more credible than the reviews written on them by the by the restaurant itself, on a website written by a restaurant itself. And we're talking about trade. Trade could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and people are not having those reviews from people who are experts. So that's what we are creating. And the byproduct of that was that we would get good quality supplier recommendations, because say Marian did for give me 5 suppliers for auto components. Tomorrow another freelancer gave me another 5, and then that happens across categories. So I'm generating high quality supplier data. And unlike platforms which are advertising platforms like DHgate and Made in China and Global Sources or Alibaba, which make the money from the advertisers or the suppliers advertising on them, we don't have the conflict of interest. We don't need to sell the supplier. We need to say, okay, this is the facts about the supplier. We have no motivation because we're not making any money from them. We would do a trade percentage. So we helped Marian buy this product. I manage the production, I manage the QA QC and all of that, and for doing that I'll charge you 5% or 10% of the fee. So that's what we started doing, because in March 2020 I remember there were all kinds of buyers scrambling to get from masks to gowns to gloves and all these COVID related products, and they didn't have sources, and they would send in $1 million into China, and they would never get to see anything of the product. So they were worried, and they were kind of desperate. So we got a few of those buyers from the likes of University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, which is one of the third largest medical chains in the US. We got NHS in UK, which is the government of the Department of Health of UK. We got a foundation started by Jonathan Kuhn, the 1-800 Contacts founder, and Michael Dell and Mark Cuban. They had a Austin Emergency Foundation. So those kind of buyers came in very quickly, very early on to us because of the credibility and the market, and people knew us and all that, right? So we got started, and within 4 or 5 months we were broke even, and we got the money to invest into the company, what we wanted to build and the tools we wanted to build, the POCs we wanted to do from the revenues. And we haven't looked back since. We've been in the black since. We've not raised a single dollar anywhere else. If it was no COVID, I would have had.
Impressive.
Yeah. So if COVID was not there, that's why the advantage of COVID, that if COVID was not there, I would be raising money last year, right?
So the company called is BuyHive.
Yeah.
So what is the couple of things that makes it very different from other companies that also in sourcing? What is your unique position? I know that the market big, and now this is the advantage that you have the big market, and not people cannot travel, they cannot come over here. But still, if there are some other companies coming up with the same probably business plan, how are you going to compete?
Yeah, so the main thing is the solution, the way we are building it, it is not based on suppliers, or it is not dependent on revenues from suppliers, right? Which is the biggest thing for all these other platforms that are there, or many of the new ones also we have seen, is they all try to make money from the supplier. And because they're trying to do that, and because their revenues depend so much on suppliers, take an example of Alibaba International, they get 90% of its revenue from supplier advertisers. So they cannot change that. That's millions and millions and millions of dollars. Global Sources, my previous company, same thing, millions of dollars coming from advertisers. They will not be able to change that. That's what that is in their DNA. So that's something that we can reinvent in terms of our service. And the other part is that we are providing a sourcing service. We are not providing a listing. What we are doing is adding trust and transparency to the sourcing world, because all these platforms, and not just in China, all over the world there are platforms like this, and these platforms, they do the matchmaking. Their job is to matchmake, but their job is not to see the trade through. So with our solution, one, we can see the trade through. Second, we are able to actually help the buyers solve their headache. So now, because of COVID, what has happened is many of the buyers cannot travel, and those that will get their budgets back in the future, their budgets would also have been cut extensively, because in 2020 and 21 their CFO tasted blood and seen that, okay, we don't need to spend that much on travels for sourcing. So that is the time then our solutions will actually be able to help them a lot. And we bring in transparency, we do trust, and we provide them complete uh, kind of peace of mind in their sourcing. They can focus on selling. So who is, you're in China, so you know very well that the platforms that are growing in China are the ones that have third party sellers. And the same thing is happening in US and Europe now, in about 5 years after what happened in Taobao and Tmall and all these. Now Amazon has all the third party sellers. People are making stores on Shopify, and people are making stores on Magento, and so on and so forth. And these guys know how to create brands, how to sell the product, how to really do SEO, SEM to really be able to sell. But they don't have sourcing expertise. While what is happening is the big sourcing companies like VF Sourcing, Li and Fung, Macy's, Walmart, everybody has shrunk people. So sourcing people are out of jobs, or they have at least got a salary cut, and those people can help those sourcing professionals. They can help those new brands, new retailers to actually grow faster because they know how to source. Those guys know how to sell.
Sounds like a perfect match. You've been in this industry for quite some time. You already seen lots of things, and you've seen lots of changes. Based on your experiences, the final question is: what are the big trends that are coming in sourcing industry?
Yeah, so which is related to what I just said, right? Because what has happened is retail, and then, okay, so when we were planning BuyHive, we were seeing that retail is going to change. There is going to be a shift from brick and mortar to online and platforms and third-party platforms like Amazon and Shopify and all of those. What we did not see coming was COVID has been the perfect catalyst for making it happen. In what would have happened in 10 years has happened in 1 year, right? The change from people accepting that we can buy online, people moving away certain products that they never thought they would buy online, but because of COVID, especially in the Western markets where they had lockdowns for longest time, they all moved to that very quickly. China had moved beforehand, right? China had moved to their online model with Olama and all these Taobao and Pinduoduo and all these were already there. But the West saw that growth in the last 1 or 2 years. And that is going to be the future of retail. The retail is only growing. If you see the numbers, the retail overall has grown about 25% during COVID also. But the growth has come from not the traditional retailers. It's not the Walmarts and the Targets and the Kmarts and the Carrefours that are growing. It is the third-party sellers, individual sellers, small brands, small retailers on third-party platforms that are bringing in the new sale. And people lost jobs, right? People who were working in different businesses lost jobs, and they saw that, okay, I can create a Shopify store very easily. I know how to create a brand. Many of them are KOLs. So those are the future of retail. And because that is the future of retail, sourcing also changes. Because in the past, they would have huge sourcing teams. So the likes of Carrefour and Target and Walmart, they have their huge sourcing teams who would do the finding of suppliers, who will do the shortlisting and do the manufacturing management, etc., etc. But these small guys, they don't understand that. They know how to sell, and that's what their focus should be. So that's the change that is going to happen, and the product sourcing will change. On a macro level, there are other changes that are happening, right? So this what I talked about is micro from a sourcing perspective for my BuyHive point of view. On a macro level, the global dynamics are changing. You see, yesterday after this, the Huawei CFO has been sent back. It's a sign of how dynamics are changing across economies, right? Whether it is related to the trade between China and US, there are a lot of uncertainties. At the same time, I don't know if you're following the UN SDG, the UN summit, sorry, the UN, what is it called? The UN National Summit that they are doing right now in the US. And you can see the photos of Biden with Narendra Modi, with the Japanese Prime Minister and the Australian Prime Minister sitting together and saying, oh, we are making plans for the future. And you immediately know that what they're building is a counterbalance to China. At the same time, China is meeting others from Africa, and they're doing the stuff that they're doing in Pakistan and Afghanistan and Bangladesh and the stuff. So everybody, you're seeing a trade change, and that is going to be the political change, the macro political change is going to drive how trade is done between countries and where sourcing of certain things will do. China is irreplaceable. I can tell you that it's not, even if US and China break ties in all ways, there's certain products that US and Europe need China for. But there are certain products that they don't need China for. And we have to see which are those products, how will the shift happen in sourcing because of maybe tariffs, because of just the end user saying, I'm not going to wear Chinese made clothes or Chinese made shoes or whatever, right? That's another sentiment that grows, and that will change how sourcing will happen for certain products.
Thank you very much, Minesh. I wish you the best of luck on your entrepreneurial journey. I hope to see BuyHive very soon becoming a unicorn in the near future.
Thank you.
So that's going to be your next milestone.